Can you guess where I've hidden the worm composting bin in this area? In today's video, I'm going to show you how easy it is to make your own worm composting bin to bury directly into your raised beds or your containers. Before I show you how to do this, let's talk about why you want to do it and also the benefits behind raising worms for your garden. When worms are trailing under the soil, they are helping to eat up any kind of compostable products like your food scraps, any bigger chunks of bark or things like that, and the microbes would also help to break it down. And as the worms poop out the castings, these castings are actually really rich nutrients to slowly feed your plants, and that is what really helps an organic garden to thrive, because these castings would help feed the microbes in the soil. When the worms are moving around the soil, they're also helping to create air pockets or aeration for the soil and for the roots to grow better. I have multiple vermicomposting systems here, one of them being the Worm Factory 360, I think that's what it's called. I put a lot of more smaller food scraps like the fruit and vegetable pulp from juicing into there because it's a smaller, more compact composting system. And then the hungry bin being the larger one, almost like the size of a trash can, I put bigger stuff like garden scraps, the things, the prunings that I do in the garden, and some larger kitchen waste would go in there. But that one takes longer to break down because the pieces are much bigger. And then the third worm composting bin I have is actually directly planted in to the raised beds. When you're putting a worm tower or a worm composting bin directly in a large container or one that's in contact with the earth, the worms will just come when you put food in, so you don't have to buy any worms. Of course you can to get a head start. It'll be a lot faster than waiting for them to slowly come, but they will in time. It's just also really convenient when you're able to just go outside and dump the food scraps in there, and as the worms eat it up and they create these worm castings, they're trailing around, they just help you distribute the nutrients in that area rather than you picking it up in like a separate bin and then sprinkling around the garden. In fact, let me show you the worm towers around here. As you can see, I got this buried flush with the grow bag. The soil's a bit dry here. I am going to switch everything out over here to put in another bed. But this one I actually just use a container, and I got this at the Dollar Tree. So you can find any kind of like Tupperware with a cap. If you don't have a cap, like I said, you just put like a plate or something on top. So you just unscrew this and put your food inside. I haven't fed this in a while, so let's just take a look. Yeah, but a lot of stuff have broken down, so you see that? So this is all the castings mixed in with a little bit of the soil from the grow bag. When you put food scraps in here, the worms would be concentrating in this area. However, I have not been feeding this spot for about a month now. You still can see that everything has been broken down by the worms. I had stopped feeding this area because I'm going to be switching things out, but you can see when there's no more food, they go elsewhere to search. Here is my ashitaba bed. Very, very lush growing right now. But in here in the back, this is where I have the worm tower. This is a 6-inch diameter PVC pipe that I got at Home Depot. I'll show you what I did with it in a bit. See how this one has a cap on? You can also purchase the cap separately, but it is made for this, so it sits on here perfectly. It can get pretty tight if I push it down too much, so I don't do that. I just lightly cap it on top. But this would help to keep the critters out and the smell out. If you don't get the cap, you can just put like a pot, another pot or a saucer on top just to block the hole. This is basically what I have buried in this raised bed. And I buried it, you can bury it as much as you want. I think just easiest is to just bury it almost as high as the raised bed. That's how I do it. You can bury it this low, you can bury it all the way up here as well. It doesn't matter. I just didn't want to dig too deep into the earth, just because it's easier this way. When you have a worm composting system like this, you don't have to do anything but to put some food scraps or some little garden clippings in here. Let the worms break it down. They will go in and out through those holes and distribute these nutrients in your bed. You can also take some of it out to use for other containers. Sometimes though, I do like to aerate this if it, oops. When you're doing a larger heating compost pile, you'd want to aerate it. In this case, you don't have to, but sometimes I do like to give it a bit of a turn inside so that it gets aerated. This is one of the compost crank that I use. I like that it fits in a tight space like the worm tower really well. This one's actually handcrafted here in the US in my neighboring state, Arizona. A very handy and sturdy tool to use. I'll show you what I do here. So I just go in and give it a turn and just twist it in. I'm doing this with one hand, so it's a bit difficult. There you go. I got some tea and coffee brewing filters, tea leaves, coffee grounds, a little bit of garden clippings, and all that really fine black stuff is the castings. This compost crank is so sturdy. Thank you, Lotech Products, for sending me this awesome tool. If you guys are interested in that tool, I'll put a link down below for you. I had this idea that I wanted this bed to have some sort of a symmetrical shape with like a fountain. So having the worm tower, you know, slightly like to the left or the right would not only take up room, but it would just not be symmetrical. So I thought, hey, let's make it a little inconvenient for me, but I'm okay with that. Whenever I have some food scraps, all I gotta do is get up here. It's a bit of a tight space, but it's totally worth it because it gives me extra space to plant one more thing. So when I have food scraps, all I gotta do is pick this up, set it down. And this is where the worm bin is. Okay, the next step, I just pick up this brick because I didn't want to use that cap, because once I put the original cap to this PVC, it's going to be really tight. So that's what it looks like. You see, this is just a hole. If I want to, say, make it even easier, instead of removing this brick, if I ever feel like doing some human manure composting, I can always cut a hole here, and you can just sort of, if you're not too tall, I guess you can you can just kind of sit right here. You can see I just got this one buried flush to the bed, so you can't tell that it's in here at all. Got some worms, a little bit of worm action going here. Hi worms, can I just kind of pick you up a bit? There's not a crazy amount yet, but they are starting to gather. I got a couple of worms in here. They'll slowly, more will slowly come. Since we're here, I might as well toss a couple more things in. A couple of flowers. Then when I'm done, I just need to put this on. Put this back on. Now let's make the worm tower. To make this, I used the 6-inch diameter PVC pipe. It's sold separately, but I like to get it with the cap on. You know what? You can also use the 5-gallon buckets to do it. That is, you know, something you can get them really easily. But the only drawback for that for me is that it is so wide, it takes up too much growing space. That's why I like to go with something nice, tall and narrow. As you know, vertical space is pretty much unlimited. That's why I love working with a lot of trellising, just growing up when you have a lack of space. So with this one here, because it is pretty thick, you do need a proper tool to drill the holes. That would make the job so much easier. I use a compact drill, and I just gotta, you know, put the battery on, and So I can use any kind of drill bit to make the holes. I really prefer using the step drill bit because it goes in really smooth, almost like drilling into butter with this thing. It goes in from small to large for however big you want the holes to be. And the greatest thing about this is that it's not only easy to use, but it really makes a really nice clean hole. That way it would not scrape or scratch up or injure the worms. If you're using a thinner container, even just those 5-gallon buckets, you can drill through those so easily. You can even get like one of those tools that like melts plastic. It does kind of doesn't smell very good, so make sure if you do want to burn the holes in, do it outdoors. All you have to do is drill holes all around this and put it in the soil. This is a 4.5-gallon bucket, or you can use a 5-gallon bucket. You can see it's a really great size to use. The idea of this is to drill holes, just as many holes as you can all around the pipe or the bucket. And you can just drill the holes up to as high as you are going to bury. If this is the soil line, I'm going to want to drill it down to about here and I'll stop. You just want the holes for the worms to access. To have any holes above the soil line, it's just going to attract more critters with the smell coming out. So yeah, so this one, when I have it hidden, like buried flush with the bed, I drilled all the way up to here, so I have like a whole lot of space for all the worms to fit to go in and out. I drill it up to almost 1/2 inch diameter so that it's very easy for even the biggest worms can travel in and out. This one does not have a seam, but if there is like the 5-gallon buckets, usually buckets would have a seam. I would avoid drilling directly there because that is the weakest point. I just want to keep things lasting as long as they can. So I would just maybe stay 1/2 inch away from the seam on each side and just literally drill around it. All right, let's get started with this one. I like starting right here. Just watch your hands and feet where this thing is going. See how this one really makes like these ribbons. You can see the hole is really smooth. It won't cut into the worms. It's kind of messy. I should put a tarp down actually. For safety precautions, do not put force on the tool or anything. Just let the drill bit go in by itself. My hands are here to hold this object so it wouldn't move. And then my other hand is holding the drill just to guide it and let the drill bit go down by itself. I got one line done. All like that. Here I am continuing to drill those holes. Next I'm going to install it. Since the idea of installing the worm tower in this bed came up after I filled up the bed, I now have to carefully remove the soil without disturbing the plants around so that I can fit the tube in. I only wanted to extract the soil where it's needed, so I had to carefully press down with this tube, and I kept turning it so I can take that soil out. Got the first one. Now I'm going to put it in and do it again. Press down with the tube and then dig up the soil. I just kept repeating this process until I got the hole deep enough. After some digging, now it is the moment of truth. In the hole it goes. Make sure it's in there tight. Don't fall in there, worm. You're gonna fall in that hole. No! I am so glad it fits, but again, due to my poor planning, I had to carefully remove the tube so I can finish up drilling all the holes, then I can put it back in again. I took this one out of an older bed, which actually was a shorter bed. So this tower was only buried this deep. Like this used to be the soil level, but now I got a much deeper bed. I'm going to modify it just by drilling more holes all the way up to, well, this one actually stays flush now with this new bed. So I'm going to keep drilling these holes all the way to maybe like 2 to 3 inches from the top. I just needed to make sure I dust off all the plastic shreds. And this is what it looks like. Here comes the most exciting part. These are some teas and coffee grounds. And now the brick just goes back on top and no one's gonna know. Except for you. Goes right on top. I think this is the easiest way to compost your food scraps. Thank you guys for joining me out here today to build this up. For plants and seeds, don't forget to check out my shop. I will put a link below. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I will see you right back here in the next one. Bye.